Oh man, what else we got? Man, so many good games. So many good games. I know another series which wasn't an Xbox exclusive because it came out on GameCube and PlayStation. But for me, I was super excited to get my hands on it and spend a lot of time on was Prince of Persia. Prince of Persia: Sands of Time.
This is one I own, but I have never gotten around to playing, unfortunately.
Oh man, it was great. It was so good. The story was out of the first one, Sands of Time was phenomenal. The gimmick of that one was the ability to kind of rewind time if you make a mistake. You needed these sands, and as long as you had sands, you can rewind a few seconds back do something.
This is like a common thing now for if anybody's younger that's listening. This was like groundbreaking at the time. It was like, oh my God, you can rewind. Like that's insane. Like that's why they called it the Sands of Time, because it was like such an important feature to the game. Now, I do have another question for you, because this also came out multi-platform. Did you have the Xbox, GameCube, or PS2 version of the game?
I only bought the Xbox one because, as you stated, the Xbox at the time was the most powerful system on the market, and it was the better version out of all three. And as much as people love the PlayStation, it was the inferior product.
That's very true. You know, I ended up buying a lot of my third-party games on Xbox. Once I had one, of course, I had the PlayStation 2 first. So I have more games for PS2 because I had that for a longer period of time, and it was like my dedicated system until I got an Xbox. Then I started buying all my third-party stuff on there, except for when they, put Link in a fighting game. Then when I buy it on Nintendo. But yeah, the Xbox was way more powerful. And another important thing that involves Xbox today, I don't know how you feel about this. I still buy my third-party games on Xbox, and there's one very specific reason. Even though the Xbox wasn't the most powerful during the Xbox One generation, the PS4 was actually more powerful than the Xbox One, at least until they made, I think when Xbox One came out with the
X,
that was ended up being more powerful than the PS4 Pro. But for a while there, PlayStation had them beat. And even in this generation, from what I can tell, the PS5 is more powerful than the Xbox. But I'm still buying my third-party games on Xbox. Do you know why that is?
Question. You know what? Is it because of the achievement points?
No, I used to care a lot.
You used to care a lot about achievement points.
I was hooked, man, but not anymore. Not anymore.
Why do you do that?
Because they respect my investment more than PlayStation does.
Okay.
I can buy a game on Xbox, and I can have very good confidence that in 10 years from now, I'll be able to put that game into whatever Xbox I have, and it will play.
Yes, it would.
PlayStation, I have no faith whatsoever. You know, when PS6 comes out, I don't know that my PS4 games are going to work on the PS6. Sure, maybe my PS5 games will. But Sony has a history of not giving a shit about, granted, they did try that with PS3, and then what did they do? Like 2 years into PS3, they were like,
they changed the system.
Forget it. We're not going to do it anymore.
We're going to take it out. We're going to take it out.
But Xbox is, even the 360 played some original Xbox games. And then when Xbox Ones came out, they made backwards compatibility a big thing. So when I buy games now, it's like, sure, they might be a little bit more powerful on PS5, but at least I can bring my games with me on whatever the next Xbox is.
Agreed. Oh, definitely. That is such a good point. Such a good point.
That changed everything, man. Otherwise, I have zero reasons to buy a game on an inferior console. If PS5 is more powerful, I would be buying all my games on there. But I have no faith that they're going to continue to work on my PS5, especially digital stuff, man. Come on, dude. I can't even put a game inside the system, and you expect me to, at least the digital Xbox games I have, dude, I'm playing like 360 games on my Xbox that I paid for 15 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't say the same for PlayStation.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is somebody who loves all systems. I don't give a crap. Like, I love PlayStation, but I do love Xbox too. Clearly, I do. Like, it doesn't matter. Just play them wherever you want to play them, but like have a reason to, play them where you should.
I agree. I agree. So yes, man, Prince of Persia, I think was so good, so good. You know, and there was another game that used the whole rewind feature. It was Blinks the Time Sweeper.
Blinks the Time Sweeper.
Yeah,
The
because yeah,
unforgettable character that's still all over Microsoft consoles to this day.
yeah, it was. You know, the Xbox was unique because it came with a built-in hard drive. And Microsoft used that hard drive for things like the whole rewind feature, especially with Blinks.
Yep, they did.
It did, and that was the whole thing. It was, you know, similar to the Sands of Time where you can rewind time. It gave you the ability to rewind longer. You know, it was still a platformer. It had its flaws, but again, the gimmick of rewinding was unheard of until then.
Wes, I'm going to throw a trivia question at you, Ray. I had to look this up because I had no idea what the hell it was called. The first game was clearly Blinks the Time Sweeper. Everybody knows that.
Right.
What is the title of the sequel?
Blinks 2.
That's part of it. But what is it? It's colon what?
Oh, man, I can't remember. I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Masters of Time and Space.
Was it?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I'm looking at the cover art right here. I had to Google it while you were doing that. I was like, oh man, what the hell was that game called? I bet nobody knows what the hell this game is called.
It had two cats on it. It had Blinks and someone else standing back to back, if I'm not mistaken.
You are 100% right about that.
Okay. I just couldn't remember the title. I could see the picture in my head, but I couldn't remember the title.
I thought maybe you could pull it out. If anybody could pull it out, it would have been you. Nobody else is going to. No, I bet you most of the people listening to this right now had no idea what Blinks was, especially a sequel to that game. Like, Jesus.
What else you got, man?
All right, so I got to mention this because everybody's going to come at us with pitchforks, knives, all sorts of things if we don't. Role-playing game that I actually could play because it wasn't turn-based, and that's Fable.
Yeah. Ooh, Fable. Okay.
Fable was great, man. You know, the choices you made matter. Your personal, like, grow like horns if you're evil and stuff like that. Like, Fable was really, really good.
It was good. And the whole, I guess, tagline with Fable was that you aged as you played it. You started off as a kid, and by the time you finished the game, you're an old man. That was really kind of like unheard of at the time.
Yeah, there was very few things like it. It was like truly a groundbreaking game. This was another reason why Xbox was really important at the time. Like, you had Sony having all like of its heavily like RPGs, right? You got all these RPGs from Sony, but then you have ones from Xbox that you can't get anywhere else also. Like, this was why the Xbox was really good. They had, you know, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. They had Fable. They had Jade Empire, which is another game people will forget about. But that was, you know, a BioWare game from back in the day that a lot of people really like. That was only on Xbox. So Xbox had their own RPGs. They clearly didn't have as many as PlayStation, but there was a lot of beloved ones that people will forget were Xbox or Xbox exclusive at that time.
So true. So true. You know, we talked about how the Xbox was a more powerful system, you know, compared to the PlayStation 2. And Sony was known for Crash Bandicoot. You know, Crash was a Sony mascot. You know, the games,
yelling at Nintendo with his bullhorn.
Yeah, all the games were fun to play. They were great platformers. And then they came to Xbox. And Crash, for the first time, had fur.
Yeah.
He had fur. And it looked, and the fur moved. You know, it wasn't still, it wasn't flat. It was, you could look at it and tell it was fluffy.
Yeah, those screenshots were posted all over magazines, like trying to like show you the detail, and like everybody was drooling it over at the time. But granted, like if you look back at things like this now, you're like, what the hell is everybody talking about? Like you had to be there. You had
You
to be there
had
to understand.
you had to be there because Crash was just flat orange, and then that was it. And then he goes to Xbox and he has fur. I was like,
The fur physics.
the fur physics. And then we also got a remake of Conquer because Microsoft bought Rare and they
Yes, they
re-released
did.
Conquer, and Conquer had fur.
Conquer Live and Reloaded.
Live and Reloaded
It
with
was
fur.
it was basically a remake of Conquer for the Xbox, which had the fur physics. But the Live and Reloaded part was, this was like Xbox Live was like a big reason people wanted an Xbox, and this had those features in it. It was like, you know, they had live compatible stuff with inside the game. I think they had like added like a multiplayer mode or something like that, and that's what the part of the game that was like live enabled. What else made Xbox stand above the competition? So we're just talking about like some fur physics and these other games, and Xbox Live is clearly a huge factor, right? Like, yes, Dreamcast was the first in the door, but Xbox was the one who like said, no, this is how you play games online.
Yes. The creation of Xbox Live and achievement points, you know, Microsoft, and it was interesting because Sony was trying to do their online, you know, a little after the fact, you know, and the diehard Sony fans, you know, swore by Sony Online, but this is what Microsoft does.
Yeah.
Microsoft was not going to lose on the online front. They just were not. And Xbox Live was so well thought out. It was so good. It was hands down a better online platform than what Sony had to offer.
Yeah, I remember this isn't the same era, obviously, but I didn't have Xbox until the Xbox 360 and PS3 era. And I had both an Xbox 360 and a PS3, and I couldn't like understand why people were like, oh, PS3's online is great. I'm like, you don't even know. Like, this is not even on the same level as what Xbox offers. Like, it's not even close. I think that now they're a lot like more aligned, but Xbox Live, like, why did you pay for Xbox Live? Because it works, and it works really well. And the community is like really easy to engage with everyone. You have like your friends list, everything just works the way it should naturally work. And PlayStation was like, oh, well, you know, it'll kind of work if you do this. Yeah, it's free. And then they got hacked. Well, that's why you're paying for Xbox service, and you got, you know, PlayStation for free.
It was the first system to really push high definition.
High definition.
High definition. Right. When we say high definition, we're talking 480. That was high definition in its infantile stages.
I mean, it certainly made a difference if you plugged into a CRT, if you hooked up some component cables, it certainly made a difference for sure.
It did.
It jumped you up from 480i to 480p, basically.
But still, it was who up to that point, who really knew what, you know, HD was until Microsoft made it a household word.
Right. That was the beginning of it, man.
And that was it.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, did the console come with it came with AV cables that also had component cables in there, right? So like you can choose how you wanted to set it up, or did you have to buy those separately?
I think we had to buy them separate. I think it came with AV cables.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, I think it came with AV cables.
Because the ones I have now are certainly component cables, but they're like the official Microsoft ones. So I must have purchased those separately for the better graphics at some point.
Yeah, I have to check, but I want to say it didn't come with. It had AV and an S video on it, or no? Was it just AV?
You might be right about that. I feel like that's correct, but I don't know for sure.
I can't remember. It's been 20 years.
It has been 20 years.
20 years, but I want to say it was AV, the red, yellow, and white, and then it also had a fourth one, which was the S video.
I think you're right, because those component cables would have been more expensive at the time, and like so few people would have even bothered using them. You know, this was like the precipice of quote unquote high definition.
High definition, yeah. I mean, if anybody else remembers, please let us know.
Yeah, drop a comment for sure.
Please.
Now, another feature we touched on earlier was the hard drive, so I'm just going to mention it briefly. That hard drive was super important because this was, you know, everybody got used to using memory cards in the N64 and the PS1, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I guess you can use a memory card, but we have a hard drive, so you should probably just use that because it's easier and better than a memory card.
Oh, it made saving so much easier. You know, yeah, we talked about the Duke controller, you know, which people love it or hate it, you know, and then we have the S controller, again, love it or hate it. I still preferred the Duke.
I like the S, but the Duke is, you know, I just feel comfortable with the Duke. Now, I mean, I think Xbox's best controller now was, I mean, their current controller is great.
Like, oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, I mean, I felt 360s was really good, but a lot of people didn't like Xbox Ones. I did like Xbox Ones. I like the new ones for the Series X that have like a grip to them. That's really the only thing that's changed. Is like they have some grip there and some grip on the triggers. But I'm good with that, man. That's all I need.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm trying to think, was there a light gun for the Xbox?
Yes, there was. I think it was an official light gun, but I might be wrong. It could have been developed by like Mad Catz or someone, because there was only a couple of games that used this gun. The gun was ugly as hell, but it worked with House of the Dead 2, I want to say, was for the original Xbox, or maybe it was 3. It was one of the other.
I think it was, I want to say it was 3.
Maybe
I want to say, because 2 came out for Dreamcast, right? But I really want to say,
because 1 came out on Saturn, 2 would have probably been around Dreamcast. This would have been House of the Dead 3.
It was 3. It was.
That sounds right. And then there was like, you know, 1 or 2 other games that used the light gun, as far as I remember. There was almost no reason to own the light gun, but it did exist.
I don't really remember the light gun.
Well, I mean, light guns were like Sega's thing, man. You know, light guns were like huge for them. They had like all those arcade games and stuff that used light guns. I think that's where it came from, but I don't know that Microsoft made it. It might have been a third party.
Third party, Mad Catz or something. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, but you talked about Sega, and that was another thing that being a Sega fan, gravitated me towards the Xbox, because it seemed like Sega and Microsoft kind of partnered, because they got a lot of exclusives.
This was the second coming of Sega. This was Sega's console when they didn't have a console, at least in that initial like lead off. And in my opinion, sure, you had your GameCube Sega games, absolutely. You had your Billy Hatcher, whatever the hell else they had on GameCube that I don't remember. But Xbox had Jet Set Radio.
Oh, Jet Set Radio. That game is just gonna. That's one of my all-time favorites. I wish that series comes back.
I think it can live again. I know there's some developers out there that are making like spiritual successors, I guess, to Jet Set Radio. I think there's one that's coming out within the next year or so. So hopefully that'll be pretty cool, because I don't know why Sega's sleeping on this so much, but maybe they think it's not going to sell well or something.
Yeah, because you figure Sega put out Jet Set Radio. We had Crazy Taxi 3.
Oh, I mean, Crazy Taxi was great. 3, I don't remember playing that much, but I mean, 1 and 2 were fantastic. But yeah, that 3 was an exclusive to Xbox at the time.
That was exclusive. We had Panzer Dragoon Orta.
Yep, which was highly praised at that time as well.
That was the 4th game in the series. That went back to the rail shooter. Gun Valkyrie, which is a little known action shooter platformer type of game. Sega GT, because Sega was known for racing games. That was really good.
Yeah, Sega GT. If you guys bought an Xbox during probably about a 1-year period, I think, or maybe it was just the holidays when Xbox was selling really well, there was a free game that was in every Xbox. It was a 2-pack. It was Jet Set Radio, and then the other disc was Sega GT. So like that's like a very common thing to see, is that combo pack of the 2 games together.
Yep. And then Sega also put out Shenmue 2. And that was an Xbox
Yes,
exclusive.
it was a re-release because Shenmue 2 was already out at this point, but it was never released in America. It came out in Japan and in
On
Europe, I believe.
Dreamcast. Yep, on Dreamcast. And then we got, Shenmue 2, which came with Shenmue the movie, which was a playthrough of the first one in movie form. And it led you right into the second one.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So basically you were just like sitting there watching it and watching someone play Shenmue without all the options and everything else. It played like a movie, but it was all in-game graphics.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Sega, since we're on the subject, next month, the next time you see another podcast from us outside of the segments that we do for Xbox, we're going to be discussing Sega Genesis, the 32X, and Sega CD, which you can consider different consoles, but we're going to kind of put them together as one. We could easily do a whole like 6 months probably worth of podcasts on just the Genesis alone. So this is going to be a very much, overhead view of those three systems or parts of systems, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah, they were all an extension of the Dreamcast.
Yeah, I mean, they were all add-ons, man.
They were all add-ons.
But yeah, so we look forward to that, guys. From now, we're going to sign off, but we just want to remind you to please follow us over on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, all those things. You can follow us at Nerdthusiast. Remember to please provide some support over on Patreon if you can. It's patreon.com/nerdthusiast. You guys will get access to exclusive videos each month. So please check those out over there. Wes, where can people find you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Grendel5 at XBX. And you can also come check me out at Level Up Entertainment. We have 2 locations. We have one in Summers Point, New Jersey, and the second one in Mays Landing, New Jersey, in the Hamilton Mall. We sell comic books, retro video games, Gundam models, and we have some pinball machines you can play. So come check us out.
There you go, man. Make sure you guys check out Wes. If you guys want to follow me, it's at FromNJ2CA. The 2 is the number 2 over on Twitter. And until next time, you guys take care.
Have a good one, guys.
Happy birthday, Xbox.
Yay, Xbox.